While millions of people are screaming at their TVs, painting their faces, and feeling emotionally devastated just because 11 strangers lost a game, there is a massive group of people who simply couldn't care less. According to neuroscience, their brain's wiring might actually be different. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share will completely shift how you view the sports-obsessed people in your life. Here's the thing that rarely gets discussed. Not caring about sports doesn't make you boring. It doesn't mean you lack passion, and it definitely doesn't mean something is wrong with you. But there is something fascinating happening in your brain that is fundamentally different from the 60% of Americans who follow sports like a religion. Let's start with the most basic question. Why do so many people care so much? Humans are by nature tribal creatures. For thousands of years, being part of a group meant survival. Your tribe protected you from predators, helped you hunt, and kept you alive. In the modern world, sports are essentially modern tribes, just with better jerseys and merchandise. When someone watches their team, their brain releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, the same chemical that makes you love your family. Wild, isn't it? Their brain literally tricks them into believing these millionaire athletes are part of their own clan. But this is where it gets interesting. People who aren't obsessed with sports often possess what psychologists call lower tribal instincts. Their identity isn't as strongly tied to being part of a collective group. They are more individualistic. They might say, I don't need to belong to something bigger to feel complete. A 2019 study found that people with low interest in sports showed significantly less us versus them thinking. In other words, they don't automatically hate the other team just because they aren't on their side. Wait, it gets even weirder. What happens in a sports fan's brain during a game is actually quite concerning. That feeling you get when you're about to open a gift, that anticipation, is triggered by dopamine firing in your brain. Sports fans get that same hit at every turn, with every shot, constant microdoses of anticipation and reward. It is, quite literally, an addiction. fMRI scans show that watching your team activates the same reward centers as gambling or other highly addictive behaviors. And here is the kicker. The uncertainty is what makes it so powerful. You don't know if your team will win. That unpredictability keeps the dopamine flowing. It's called intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive reward schedule known to psychology, the same one that makes slot machines so effective. Your brain doesn't care where the dopamine comes from, it just wants more. There's another psychological phenomenon called BIRGING, basking in reflected glory. When their team wins, fans say, we won. When the team loses, they say, they lost. Notice how they psychologically distance themselves from the failure. However, those who aren't sports obsessed tend to have a more stable self-concept. They don't need external victories to feel successful. Their self-esteem doesn't depend on things completely outside of their control. Now, before the comment section explodes, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. But legitimate psychological differences do exist. Interestingly, sports fans often score higher on certain empathy scales. They practice caring deeply about the struggles of strangers, the players. So why don't non-sports people feel that same empathy for athletes? It's about empathy allocation. Everyone has a limited capacity for deep concern. Those who aren't sports fans often direct that empathy towards social causes, personal relationships, creative projects, or intellectual challenges. A 2021 study found that people with low sports interest often derive their emotional highs from art, music, nature, and ideas. They prefer being a participant rather than just a spectator. Sometimes a lack of interest in sports can be a defense mechanism. Perhaps they were treated poorly in school sports culture, or they simply don't resonate with the aggressive, competitive environment. Ultimately, it comes down to how you find meaning. Sports fans find meaning in the narrative, the underdog story, the comeback, or the ancient rivalry. Meanwhile, others think, why would I invest my emotions in something I can't control that doesn't affect my actual life? Both perspectives are valid. They are just two different ways of seeking story and meaning. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi found that flow state, the state of being completely immersed in an activity, can be achieved through countless pursuits. For some, it's watching a game. For others, it could be anything else. Interestingly, those who aren't obsessed with sports often report feeling more present in their own lives. Instead of spending 3 hours every Sunday watching someone else's struggle, they work on their own. So, what does this all mean? If you don't care about sports, you aren't missing out on a fundamental human experience. You are just different. Your brain's reward system, your tribal instincts, and your empathy are all calibrated differently. The next time someone asks, did you see the game? And you truly couldn't care less, remember, you aren't broken and you aren't boring. You're just playing a different game, one where the stakes might be even higher. If you enjoyed this video, please support us by subscribing to our channel. Thank you for listening.